In 2016, we started our big trip for the year in Dubai. I think it was fun to experience this weird place with you guys, but I'm in no rush to go back. But I think at the time, we enjoyed it, right? We had one full day in Dubai, and I was glad that Marquetta had gotten us a guide. It's always nice to have someone tell you everything that you were seeing. You miss so much without it. The first stop on our very full day was the Burj Khalifa. It almost didn't seem real how tall it is. It's kind of crazy that we went to the top of the tallest building in the world. I think the most fun part for me was looking down and realizing how high we actually were. I just wish they would have let us jump down the side of it like Tom Cruise in Mission Impossible. That would have made the experience complete, for me at least. We eventually headed back down to ground level, and the guide took us to this beautiful mosque that we took some pictures of, and then we jumped back in the van to make our way to the Gold Souk. But first we had to jump in a boat to cross the river just to make the whole experience more fun. I'm glad we did that because the Gold Souk wasn't really our scene. Too many people and nothing we actually were going to buy. We were all pretty tired at this point, and we were hungry, so the guide found us a good Lebanese restaurant to eat at, and then took us back to the hotel. From there, we had a good night's rest and headed out to the next part of our adventure, Kenya. Our Zen master, Martin, picked us up at the Nairobi airport, and we made our way to our hotel. This took us a bit of time because Nairobi's traffic sucks, and the president was in town. This made it interesting getting into our hotel because they were doing bomb checks on all cars entering the property. Yeah. The next morning, Martin picked us up, and we made our way to the giraffe sanctuary. We got to be up close and personal with some giraffes, and Mom got to even kiss a giraffe. It looked pretty gross, so none of us were interested in doing that. I will say it was pretty cool to see a giraffe from that close, though.
She stays by you, you have the whole bowl.
Then Martin took us to an elephant sanctuary, where we got to see a boatload of rescued elephants. I will say it was one of the cutest things that I have ever seen. It was fun to be able to touch them, and then watch them all play with each other in the water. Also, there was a warthog just hanging out taking a bath, and I love warthogs. After all of that excitement, Martin thought it would be a good idea for us to settle down and go to an art museum. We got to see a cat, so it was worth it. We had a late lunch and made our way back to the hotel. I think this was the night that Alner took us out to dinner, but I can't fully remember because I was jet-lagged. The next morning, we got up and headed to the Wilson Airport to catch a plane to Amboseli. I really don't like those little planes. I pretty much instantly get sick. But whatever, we were headed somewhere fun, and I was excited. When we first got in the truck and made our way out on safari, I remember Amboseli being like the Jungle Book or Lion King, but in real life. The pure amount of wildlife that we saw in a short amount of time was crazy. And this was just from getting off the plane and heading to the camp. One of the parades of elephants we saw is still one of the biggest I think I've ever seen, and the baby elephants were so adorable hidden amongst the much bigger elephants. I really enjoyed seeing all of the kingfishers as well. They are gorgeous birds that are really quite cool to look at. I think we were pretty jazzed to be out on safari because I don't remember going right back to camp. I remember staying out and taking it in as much as we could before finally Joseph, our guide, got us to the camp. The view from the camp was something pretty special though, and our tents at Amboseli were pretty nice as well. After getting settled in at our new location, we headed back out for another game drive. Right off the bat, we saw some giraffes and a lot of really cool African birds. I really enjoyed watching the elephants slowly meandering through the swamplands and then seeing other elephants out in the middle of the plains just taking their sweet time trying to make it wherever they were headed. We also got to see our first lions of the trip. They weren't that exciting because they were just laying around because they were tired, but still pretty cool to see lions out in the wild nonetheless for the first time. And then I got this majestic shot. Take it in, it's pretty sweet. In the morning, we were greeted by a majestic little fox, a group of warthogs, and a few dik-diks to start the day off right. Joseph took us to a place where there weren't many people around, and we ended up finding some giraffes. Then we came across a family of baboons and watched them for a while. More on baboons later. Joseph got us pretty close to a very large elephant that was just off by itself. I don't think there was a reason it was by itself. Maybe it just wanted some time alone and we were bugging it and we should have just left him alone. Then we saw a group of hyenas. These scavengers are pretty entertaining to watch in my opinion. Joseph had probably already found these ostrich eggs days before, but it was cool to see their nesting grounds. After checking out some more wildlife, Joseph brought us to breakfast in the bush that we weren't expecting. This is probably my favorite way to have breakfast. Just gotta say that. Like, you're out in the middle of nowhere and somebody's making you an omelet. It's pretty sweet. When we finally finished our delicious breakfast out in the bush, Joseph taught us how to make a natural toothbrush out of some branch. Do you think he was trying to tell us something? I think he was. Maybe it was to help our breath before meeting the African tribe he took us to after breakfast. They did a whole introduction song for us, and then they showed us their village. This is the village that still owes Dad a goat or two for his watch. I can't remember if it was one or two. They ended up teaching us how to start a fire with cow poop, something I still use to this day. And then as we were leaving, the tribe said goodbye to us. We went back to the Amboseli camp and got into our tent to take a nap. Our nap was rudely interrupted by some baboons chasing off a dog. Not sure if it was a wild dog or not, but they sure didn't want it near their family, and we saw them coming and got promptly back in our tent.
They're coming this way?
Yep.
They say it's good luck to see an ostrich mating dance. I don't know who says it, but somebody does somewhere in some country. And then we finished out the day with a beautiful sunset. The next morning, we woke up and made our way to the next part of our adventure, Lewa Downs. We got back in a plane, but this plane was much bigger, so I didn't feel as ill this time around. They took us through Wilson Airport and up to Lewa Downs. I think it took a couple of hours, but I can't really remember. It was a while ago. It's cool how different this area was. Right off the bat, we saw some similar animals to Amboseli. But then we saw one of the big five that we hadn't seen yet. Rhinos. Our guide, who I can't remember the name of at Lewa, showed us a plant covered in an ant's nest. They create the nest to protect themselves from predators. We got to the camp and got ourselves settled into our new digs for the next couple of days. That afternoon, we jumped back in the truck and got to see some more animals. That seems to be the trend of this trip. Our guide got word of a cheetah and he rushed us to the location. The cheetah was calling for its sibling, but didn't find them while we were sitting there. And then we got to see rhinos grazing on grass, and antelopes as well. Then we saw some more baboons being territorial. Keta was quite concerned about the safety of the baboon at the bottom end of the branch. He was fine. Then we got up close and personal with the lioness. I didn't get it in the footage, but it came up really close to the truck. I wasn't scared, but I think someone else in the truck was. Glad she wasn't hungry, because I'm pretty sure she would have eaten us all. On our way back, our guide got another call. They had found a lioness and two cubs. We watched them for a while and headed back to camp to get some rest.
We started the morning off seeing a cheetah on the prowl, in search of food and her brothers. She marked her territory just to let them know where she was. We came across a rhinoceros, just chilling and grazing away. He didn't seem all that interested in us. This one was very scared of us, though. And this one was with its baby! We all got a very good African massage, driving to our next location, where we saw some sort of antelope, a reticulated giraffe, some buffalo, and buffalo babies. Munch, 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 munch. We stopped to have breakfast out in the bush again, and we're surrounded by some hungry monkeys. I've decided crested cranes have the best hair on safari. We saw a bunch more zebra, and then a full-on zebra fight. Rambunctious teenagers. We came back to the camp to find an ostrich in our yard. No big deal. Then we headed back out for more safari because that's what you do when you go on a safari. This isn't a live grubby zebra. More on that later. We came across a bunch of leopard snacks and watched them for a while. They really do stink. At the end of the day, we were just as tired as this majestic animal. But don't let her fool you. She will rip you to shreds. On our way back, we ran into some savannah traffic. This guy partied all night long and is down for the count. But look at those paws. He will also rip you to shreds. Then we closed up the day with some sundowners, and I finally grew to like G&Ts. We contemplated most things on safari can rip you to shreds.
The morning began like any morning on safari. We got in a truck and headed out on safari. We saw a baby giraffe and its mother, and we learned that giraffe moms aren't the greatest moms. Come on, giraffe moms. What are you saying about my mother? You don't know me. Then we saw this weird animal that I don't know the name of, but it's weirdly adorable. I'm pretty sure these antelope have seen way too many National Geographic movies where their friends have been eaten by crocodiles. This watering hole had brought in a lot of different wildlife just looking for water. Our guide decided it was a good idea to run down dinner, but he wasn't doing a very good job of it.
That's true.
Too much tongue. We drove down by this stream where a parade of elephants had gathered. It was fun to watch the elephants just relax and eat as much as they possibly could. Later in the day, we went out for a drive and saw a wide plethora of things that we'd already seen. But then it happened.
Yeah.
Our guide was called, and they had found a Grevy zebra kill. We waited for a while, and eventually some cubs came out and started feasting on the carcass. It was great. In the morning, we checked out and checked on the zebra carcass and made our way to the airport just in time to see our plane coming in to pick us up.
Do you mind me asking?
We got in another small plane, and I ended up feeling horrible again, but that's fine, we're still on safari. We made it back to Wilson Airport, and we were picked up by our driver, who drove us to Loldia House. Then we spent the night relaxing away, looking at the amazing view. We went down for breakfast and met this majestic creature. This is also when we met our favorite guide of the whole trip, Juma. We headed out to Lake Nakuru National Park. We saw a bunch of wildlife and this super cute baboon riding its mom like she was a horse. I have no clue what this thing is, but I'm pretty sure we're soulmates. This lizard really didn't care if I took footage of him or not, so he's cool in my book. I spotted a wild keta. I think I get at least 10 points for that. I couldn't tell you the name of any of these birds, but I'm pretty sure that Juma could. For some reason, we got to spend a good amount of time with this giraffe. He was pretty cool. I named him Huey.
I got that.
We had a really good lunch at this park, but we were being stalked the whole entire time we were there by these baboons. At least we had Juma protecting us. This is probably the grossest waterfall I've ever seen. We saw a flock of flamingos. There are certain times when there's an algae in the water that they eat, and obviously there wasn't very much of it because there weren't a ton of flamingos around this time. We saw some more baboons, and then we saw this little guy. He was pretty cute. We made it back to our cottage just in time to see the sunset on another amazing day in Africa. For fun, Juma offered to take us out on a night game drive to see hippos out of the water. It was pretty cool, and they're pretty damn fast. In the morning, Dad decided to get his one workout in for the whole entire trip. Then Juma got us in the truck, and we headed to Hell's Gate. For some reason, I didn't get much footage of that, but I remember climbing down into one of the gullies, and then having to climb back out using a rope. It really didn't feel that safe. After Hell's Gate, Juma got us out on a boat for the first time on our trip. We saw some pelicans, and we saw a bloat of hippos. A bloat is like a parade, but not as pretty sounding. We also got to see this small little guy. These guys we saw in the water are braver than I will ever be. There was a flock of flamingos just swimming along, and then something spooked them, and they went flying off. Then we got some relaxation time at the cottage on the top of the hill. When it was completely dark outside, we decided it would be fun to go looking for hippos again, and it was. We woke up and had a leisurely last morning at our cottage on the top of the hill, and headed up to the runway to get on a plane to fly to our next location, Governor's Camp. On this flight, Keta ended up being the co-pilot. Luckily, she didn't have to do any of the flying, because I don't know how well she would do with that. Our guide, Joseph, picked us up, and we were right back to safarying. To get to our camp, we had to take a boat across a river with a rope. It was definitely a different way to get somewhere. I didn't get much footage of it, but that night we were in for a surprise. Karima and Ulner had set up an anniversary dinner for you two out in the bush, and it was super cool to have the tribesmen come out and dance for us. We woke up early and jumped in our boat and then our truck. Right off the bat, we saw a lioness sleeping in the grass and a hawk looking for breakfast. There was a small pride of lions that we came across, and then a jackal probably trying to find something to eat in the morning. The jackal was very interested in us for some reason. Maybe it smelled our breakfast. 2 hyenas were out on the prowl, probably looking for someone else's breakfast. And then we found a huge bloat of hippos just chilling in the water. Crocodiles were swimming around, and they were huge. I definitely wouldn't go swimming in this watering hole at all. These giraffes were just hanging out and waking up from the partying from the night before. We came across the same pride of lions again and spent some time watching them take a nap. We stopped and had breakfast on the hood of the truck and watched the hippos swimming in the river. We saw a pair of the best hair in Africa. And then we spent some time at camp watching the wildlife that was abundant right there, which includes some baby warthogs. They are too adorable. The afternoon entertainment was a hippo fight. Glad they weren't too close to our tent. That would have been pretty scary. On our afternoon game drive, Joseph did the unthinkable and found us a leopard and its cub. For some reason, the cub ended up down on the ground, so we got to see it really close up. Very early in the morning, we got up to enjoy a hot air balloon ride across the Mara. They had a whole crew of people setting up the balloon when we got there, and we watched them inflate our ride. We all got in the balloon, and then we had liftoff. It was a great experience to see the landscape from a different perspective. Made me really wish I had a drone. Off in the distance, we could see another hot air balloon doing its thing. My favorite part of the whole experience is when we scared this warthog with the jets. Nothing else seemed to be spooked by the noise, though. We spent a bit more time in the air and then landed on our backs. Everybody got out safe and sound. And then after breakfast, Joseph picked us up and we were at it again. That afternoon, you guys took a nap while Keta and I headed out with Joseph, and we ended up seeing this huge guy. And then we saw this pride of lions just trying to stay dry somehow. The cubs were having a ton of fun just playing around. Joseph found us a hyena's den, and we watched that for a bit, and then we headed back to camp to have a good night's rest, listening to the hippos pulling on the grass all around us. The morning started out right with a jackal greeting us. We saw a small herd of wildebeest and a large assortment of animals we had already seen on this trip before plenty of times. Then we had breakfast on the hood of the truck again, which is always fun. Because Keta and I had so much fun on our game drive the day before, we had Joseph take us to all of the same places so you could see the crocodiles and lions. The cubs were still cute as ever, even when they are eating poop. The last part of the day, we went back to the hyena's den and saw baby hyenas this time. They just wanted their mom to wake up and play with them. And this is when our trip came to a close. We said goodbye to Joseph and spent a bit of time waiting for our plane to arrive. It was a great way to experience Africa, and I'm glad we got to do it with you.